Welcome to Whips in the Dungeon 201.28. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about fall length. How long should your fall be? Well, I really leave that up to the whip maker because a good whip maker is going to make his whip where it's balanced and the fall is going to be balanced against the length of the thong and the handle. But I will say, just from an observatory standpoint, this Murphy bullwhip was bought in 2000, so almost 2 decades ago. Kind of the standard with whip makers at that time was the fall was being cut about 1/3 of the length of the thong or the whip. So regardless of whether it was a snake or a bull, if I took the fall and the cracker and folded it over, that would be about half the length of the thong. And if I folded it over again, there's the other third. So we've got three thirds there if you think of a piece of pie. 2/3 is the handle and thong, and 1/3 of the equation is the fall. Okay, and Murphy's whips were known, to crack easily and and roll out beautifully. Well, over time, it seems like the modern whip maker has started making their falls longer. This is a Peter Jack Latigo Adage made around 2009. And if we applied that test, then you can see the fall with the cracker is well over half the length. In fact, it's about 2/3 the length of the thong. If this was going to be made a decade earlier, then that fall would have been clipped about there. Maybe a little bit longer, but hopefully you get the idea. Falls have gotten longer and longer. It seems like in more modern times, the whip maker. Here's a little 3-foot snake. Okay, you'd think a 3-foot snake would have maybe a 12 to 16 inch fall. This fall is the same length as the whip. So when you have a 3-foot snake with a 3-foot fall, you have a 6-foot total length whip. It throws beautifully, it cracks nicely, kind of throws like a fly fishing rod, but you see that the problem that can create, this is another 4-foot Peter Jack. Again, the fall isn't as long. Now, if I don't consider the cracker, this is actually pretty close to that 1/3, 2/3 ratio that was kind of the industry standard around 2000, 2001. This is 2001 Peter Jack Target bullwhip, and you can see if we ignore the cracker and just look at the fall, that actually was built on a 1/3, 2/3 ratio. What I call 1/3, 2/3 being 2/3 of the whip is thong or plaited, 1/3 of the whip is fall. But certainly as we move into more modern times, this 3-foot Joe Strain bullwhip or snake whip, okay, it's a little 3-foot snake whip. You would expect it to have maybe a 12-inch to a 14-inch fall. That fall is well over half the length of the thong. It's balanced well, it cracks well, but the fall length is excessive if you're judging it against 2 decades ago. Okay, so we just finished a video on playing in a dirty environment. I have 3 bullwhips here. They're all 4-foot. And you can probably see by me holding them up, they're all different lengths. This one is the shortest, the Mike Murphy. The Mike Murphy actually is only about 5 foot 3 inches. And if I'm playing in a dirty dungeon and I'm standing here, I can throw this without it touching the floor. So I can play with the Mike Murphy in a dirty dungeon. The Peter Jack Target bullwhip is a little bit longer. I could shorten the cracker and play with it in a dirty dungeon. there's no way without trimming this fall could I throw the Latigo Adage in a dirty dungeon. So one of the things we want to talk about in this video, how long should your fall be, is I'm going to go, that depends upon where you play regularly and how you throw. But I would say if you throw it and it feels balanced and you're able to control it and it cracks nicely, don't fix something that isn't broken, okay? But if I knew I was going to play in a dirty dungeon every night, or I was finding it wasn't easy to crack, I was always tying the fall up against itself, then I might tune this fall. And the way I would tune the fall would be I would take a craft knife and I would just snip 1/8 to maybe 1/2, no more than 1/2 inch off. Tie a cracker on it, throw it, see how it threw. If I didn't like the way it threw, I felt like I needed a little more off, again, 1/2 inch at a time, no more than that, maybe 1/8 of an inch at a time. But if I kind of caution you, if you start trimming your cracker, or you're trimming your fall, excuse me, if you start trimming your fall before you start that process, remember back 2 decades ago when the fall was 1/3 of the length of the whip and you had that 1/3, 2/3 ratio. So find where that 1/3, 2/3 ratio is and mark your fall right there. You don't want ever have your fall shorter than a 1/3, 2/3 ratio. So all of this in between here is up to the whip thrower's preference, what you like the best. But remember, when you snip your fall shorter, you can't add more leather to that fall. It's gone for good. So do it 1/8 of an inch at a time. Find out where that sweet spot is for you, where it's the easiest for you to crack, and then stick with that and realize that if you mess up, too bad, you're going to be installing a new fall on your whip, and if you don't have a spare handy, you're going to have to order one from your favorite whip maker. So that's it on fall length and carefully tuning your whip by trimming your fall.